All right, it's 6:05. We'll call the meeting to order. I'll turn it over to you, Steve, for roll call.
Chairman Canfield,
Here.
Beecham,
Here.
Chauvin,
Here.
Spicer, and Cadwalder are absent.
I would make a motion to excuse the absence of Cadwalder and Spicer.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 2, approval of the agenda.
I have no changes.
I'll move we approve the agenda.
I'm sorry. Support.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I thought you were going to chime in there with a support.
Well, not yet.
And Tam was
There we
here.
go.
All
Sorry,
right.
traffic was
Okay.
That brings us to item 3, approval of the minutes of the April 14th, 2016 regular board meeting.
I didn't see anything that stuck out, so I would recommend approving the minutes of the regular meeting of April 14th, 2016.
And I'll support.
All right, we have a motion and support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, public comment for items not on the agenda. No comment from the public. We'll move on to action items. Turn that over to you, Steve.
Okay, the first of our 5 action items is our fiscal year 2017 benefit renewal. Our dental plan actually renews June 1st and runs through May 31st, and our health plan runs July 1st through June 30th, but historically we've always taken care of both during the May meeting, because with health insurance plans, they like to have 30 days notice before the renewal. So the first portion of my memo was our dental plan, and I listed 3 bullet points there. We did go through other plans that are offered, and our plan is very consistent with other plans. It's pretty typical. We do offer a very good sound plan. Every couple of years, we like to see what else is in the marketplace, but we do have an affordable plan that has good benefits for the employees. And the increase this year came in at 3.5%, which is lower than the last couple of years. I believe it was 4.5% the last couple. And the dental plan doesn't cost as much. I think in a year, $11,000 or so. And the increase to a family would be 43 cents a month renewing our plan. And actually, because of the mix of our employees, Lowell Light and Power will pay less in dental premiums in fiscal year 2017 compared to what we did this past year. So although with the current employees we have taking our plan right now, the plan would go up by $27.38. In total, we'll actually pay less because of the mix of employees that we have on the plan. So that's kind of an overview of the dental plan. I don't know if you have any questions or input, comments on that. Pretty straightforward. The health plan, a little bit more complicated. Right now, we have an HMO 500 plan through Priority Health, and that is ACA, Affordable Care Act compliant. Every year, healthcare plans have to fit into tiers, whether it's a platinum, a gold, silver, or a bronze, and that's like a 90% coverage level, an 80%, 70, and a 60. Our plan, as it sits right now, does not exactly fall into one of those tiers for annual year 2017. So they said, okay, there's still going to be an HMO 500 plan, but to offer that plan, there's a slight modification in one benefit, and that's the max out-of-pocket. Currently, the max out-of-pocket is $3,800 or $7,600 for individual and family. That due to the ACA, which we have no control over. Priority Health has to make this change. It goes to $5,000, $10,000. Our deductible remains the same at $500. Our prescription cost, doctor's visit cost, emergency room, all those costs stay the same. The max out-of-pocket is what's increasing. And to explain the max out-of-pocket, here's just a brief example. And if our plan had a $100 deductible and a 30% coinsurance, which we have at 20. We'll say 20% coinsurance, and you use $1,000 in services, you'll pay the first $100, which covers the deductible, and then the 20% of the remaining $900 would be paid by the employee, which would go towards the out-of-pocket max. So the out-of-pocket max really is only a factor when there's something major, like a surgery or a cancer happens to someone. So for the vast majority of employees, they'll never even get close to the out-of-pocket max. But that's how our plan would look if we renewed the HMO 500. It's a 2.6% increase, and the most affected employee would see a $6.02 increase a month. This would result in a $215, $216 increase per month for Lowell Light and Power based on our current mix of employees. But like with our dental plan, we'll actually pay $5,000 less this coming fiscal year because of our mix of employees and health insurance premiums. Does that make sense to everybody? We did look at other plans. We looked at an HMO 250, which is about the best plan that Priority Health offers. It is significantly more expensive than the current plan we have, and we would be very close to Public Act 152 hard cap. It would cost the company almost $20,000 more to go to this plan. My recommendation is no. I'm just providing you guys the information that we did look at the better plan. That max out of pocket is $3,000. There is a plan right below ours, an HMO 1000. The savings for Lowell Light and Power and employees are very minimal in terms of what they would pay in monthly premiums, but the benefits are much worse. So really, we're not getting our bang for our buck to just reduce the benefits. So my recommendation is to renew the HMO 500 as Priority Health presented to us, but I'd gladly take any questions or comments or concerns.
So what was the deduction, or the typical deduction for that HMO 250? I guess that's the good one, right?
The deduction?
Or the
Maximum out of pocket or the?
No, the
deductible?
No, the deduction part. Like, so the typical employees will see like a $6 increase per month.
It would be 18% increase. So this was a 2.6% increase. Multiply that by
okay. So it'd be 6 times
18 divided by 2.5, which is roughly what, 7?
Yeah.
So 7 times 6, so you would have maybe $42 a month for the max employee.
Okay.
So that'd be about $504 in a year. And then the company's
So an
cost
extra
would also
$500 a year, but then like $2,400, or actually even more than that, that's out of pocket. But for the I'm just trying to compare that to the out of pocket max. But it sounds like the biggest challenge is that hard cap.
Right. We would be within $1,000 of that hard cap
Which means we'd have to potentially go back to the 80-20.
next year.
Okay.
And that's still very reasonable in today's world for employees to pay $40.
I did have a meeting with a benefits provider this past week, actually, and asked, how does Lowell Light and Power's plan compare to plans that you guys see in the marketplace, other companies? And he says, we have a very competitive plan and a very generous plan for employees. So it's not like what we're offering is a bad plan in today's market. If that gives you any perspective of like, do we need to upgrade to the better one? I mean, obviously, I'd like better insurance. I'm sure everybody would, but I think as a government, we still have to be mindful of how much we're spending on those insurances as well.
Yeah, I think it is similar to what my company provided, which is a Fortune 50 company. So it's comparable.
Right.
So it's not like, you know.
That's a great plan, and the stuff that affects most of the people, the co-pays and the prescription stuff, that all stays the same.
Yep,
And like you
chiropractor
say,
visits and everything.
very likely nobody in the company would even hit their deductible this year, so, unless you have a catastrophic event.
Right.
I would make a motion to renew our current dental and health plans at 3.5 and 2.6% increase respectively.
I'll support.
We have a motion support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Let me get situated with all this stuff. The second action item is the fiscal year 2017 operating and capital budget. In March, I did present an operating and capital budget to the board that was approved. And again, in past years, if there's needed to be changes in that budget, we've made those, where it then goes to council for approval. So I have a memo in your packet along with an updated operating budget, and I'm just going to go through some highlights of that budget. Compared to the budget that I presented in March, there's virtually no change in operating revenue and purchase power expenses, which are really the two major items. Purchase power consists of 60 some odd, between 57 and 63% of our expenses. And revenue, there's really no change. I think we had that about right in March. I don't know if there's any questions in those areas. You will notice in the revenue that compared to fiscal year 2016 projected to budget, I want to point out just 3 line items. You'll see a $36,000 decrease on the commercial sales GSD, and that's primarily due to Michigan Wire just not being really in business compared to what they were. I do expect some growth in that line item, but with them not being in business, that'll decrease that. And between the GSDTO and the GSDPM, you see a $133,000 decrease and a $90,000, the $133,000 increase and a $90,000 decrease. That's really due to Envision's moving out of the Ventures facility and having their own facility. So they're actually going to be on the transformer ownership rate instead of the primary metered rate where Ventures is at right now. So really, it's just moving dollars between the two GLs, and we expect them to use a little bit more than they had been using. I really don't see a significant rate increase. Power costs have levelized, and we're selling enough power to cover our normal overhead and capital budget. So I don't see I do plan to have a rate study. That doesn't mean that costs couldn't shift between who's paying costs, between small commercial or large commercial or residents. But as a whole, I don't expect to have like a net rate increase to take in more revenue. The increase in revenue would be due to customers using more or new growth, if that makes sense. Moving on.
You said we are doing a rate study though this year?
I do plan to do one this summer or fall, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's been a few years since we changed it.
Yeah, it's been at least, I think, 6 now. So
Okay.
we're due.
We're due, yeah.
Yep, we're due. Moving down to generation. Generation, I'm showing $25,000 more than how I project the end of this year, and that's really just assuming that we run more and that we're going to have a second turbine. That we've signed up for in winter months. Right now we're going to have more generation through the biodigester, so we're not going to need to purchase as many bilaterals. And you'll see, I mean, there's large dollar changes, but there's 2-3%. I'm not going to talk about them. The Service Supply Committee expense, that last item, 131% increase. During the strategic plan at MPPA, they talked about adding services or different committees. So I'm just preparing us for that in case there were to be those committees to come online this next fiscal year. So overall, 1% increase in power. Distribution, as you can see, compared to past years, our distribution budget is significantly higher, and this is really due to various projects and inventory that it will be going towards projects that Ryan and his staff feel need to be completed. So a lot of our dollars and time have been going to capital projects, or our guys spending time on capital projects, a lot more payroll dollars will be flowing through the distribution department this coming year. If there's any other questions on other categories, I'd be happy to go through them, but a lot of these are just inflationary dollars, payroll dollars, benefit dollars that get allocated to GLs, and also looking at services and things that we've used in prior years that we feel are needed to keep operations up and running. Any questions? You'll see a total operating expense increase of 1.85% compared to how we're going to finish up this year, which I think is great. I mean, that's very minimal increase. If I take out depreciation and OPEB, which are non-cash items, we actually have a 1.32% increase in operating expenses, which I feel we're doing everything we can to control costs, but at the same time giving the service that we need to give and put the money into the system that we need to put in. So I have an operating income of $977,000, which is a very healthy operating income. It allows us to fund the capital projects that we need to complete this next fiscal year, as you'll see coming up here shortly. Moving down to non-operating income and expenses, nothing really out of the ordinary in terms of interest income or interest expense. You will see a few items on gain and loss of sale of property. We do think we will have a non-cash loss of meters that we will need to retire after we have an AMI system. That doesn't mean we actually lose money. They just, on our books, have a fair market value that we'll need to write down. And we do expect to sell some equipment. We have an old truck we possibly will be able to sell. The meters that will be taken out we can sell for scrap. And we're going to be doing a project right here by our building where we'll have the possibility to sell some equipment. So I had budgeted $20,000 right there. That leaves us at a net income of $514,000, which I think is a very healthy and reasonable net income and as accurate as we can get right now. Next page is a graph just showing historical trends and the fiscal year 2017 budget of operating revenue, purchase power expenses, operating expenses, net income, operating income. And the margins between these stay pretty consistent. And I think Andrew or Perry had said before, oh, it seems like it's pretty easy, but this just gives us assurance that, hey, we've been successful the past number of years. This next year we're budgeting, and the margins look similar, so I think we're in line with what we need to do. Moving on to the capital budget.
Can I ask a quick question before we go on to capital?
Yeah, that's fine.
Would like to look at operating first.
Yes.
Just a couple things. Maintenance office building, is there something
Significant
in the
increase.
works that is
I wanted
accounting for
to,
that?
and who knows where we'll end up being in terms of buildings, but if
Right.
we end up staying in this building, this carpet, the wallpaper downstairs is falling off. There should be some money put back into this building.
Okay, so I know we talked about
Yep.
the potential of the renovation
right.
at Chatham, and, okay, still pursuing that. Okay. And then,
I should mention employee benefits and compensation. You'll see a significant decrease, a $62,000 decrease, and that's really due to the change of personnel that we've had.
but I also noticed a significant change in the accounting, legal, engineering, and consultant.
That is really due to the rate study we'll have.
Okay,
That's $15,000 to $18,000
Okay.
by itself, so
Okay.
that's going to bump
Okay.
something from 50 to 70 real quick.
figured there was something we were doing in particular, I just
Right.
wasn't sure what. So-
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about the operating budget? All right, we'll move to the capital budget. The operating budget, as I discussed a few months ago, drives the dollars that are available for the capital budget. If you don't have the operating income and net income that you need, we won't have any money for capital projects. So on the bottom part of this sheet, I show a cash flow projection, and that's just showing you, if I were to the penny on everything that I budgeted, how much cash would we have available to either store in our bank account or use on projects in the fiscal year. I don't need to go through the calculation unless you guys want me to, but this is just showing the different items on the operating report, how I'm generating the total cash available. And I show we'll have $997,000, and I'm proposing a capital budget of $990,000. I realize this is a large amount, and I do want to give some perspective. $990,000 is 11.27% of revenue, and the wastewater fund for this coming year has a capital budget of roughly $400,000, and that's 37% of revenue, and the water fund has a capital budget of $143,000, which is 13.85% of revenue. So we actually are using a smaller portion of our revenue for capital projects than a couple other funds in the city. So you do see the large number, but our system is bigger. We're taking in more revenue. So I just don't want there to be the sticker shock of the 990 and, you know, this is way too much. So the 990, I believe, stayed the same from the March budget, but how the dollars will be used changed from the March budget. We will be paying for the AMI project as we go. So I believe we had thought about doing a 3-year payment, but due to a better cost, we were able to, you weren't here last.
Right.
We were able to save, I think, $12,000 to $15,000 by paying cash instead of going through the financing.
Okay.
So that's the route we went. And we were able to do that really because on the third line item, 4160 to 12470 system upgrades, these are projects that GRP has recommended us doing in our 5-year plan. They had assumed that we would be able to, that we would hire outside contractors to do this work. After talking with Ryan, he believes that as long as we schedule accordingly, our guys can take care of this work. That'll save us roughly $185,000. Instead of paying contractors, we just do it in-house. So that's really the reason we were able to pay for the AMI project the way we're going to pay for it. We have $110,000 left to finish the Rolls-Royce turbine, which Barney will be giving an update later. You'll see the last couple major items come in at June's board meeting that will probably be delivered in July and paid for in July. $15,300 for the capitalization of the Mack truck, our biodigester truck. Roughly $35,000 for network security, software, and phone upgrades. And a lot of this will really be the potential phone project that would be a joint effort by the entire city. I'll get to that later in the meeting, but we have a demo scheduled for Monday the 16th coming up. So they estimated this project could be between $60,000 and $80,000. I just wanted to reserve enough money in our capital budget to pay our share. After talking with Ryan, $75,000 for capital equipment, poles, transformers, tools, as recommended or needed. $30,000 for aesthetic upgrades at the Energy Center, and then $75,000 for, I forgot. Shoot, Megan, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the money for the truck improvement replacement fund?
I completed a equipment replacement plan, have it completely done, and I wanted to share it at this board meeting. I just forgot to print it. It's in our shared drive.
Sure.
It's not in the folder. What?
Is the door locked?
Yeah. I want to share it because Ryan and his staff and we did all sit down, and I apologize that I don't have it, but I did promise that I would have it.
While they're doing that, will you go back and just, for the folks in the viewer land, talk about the phone? Again, even though that we're looks the possibility that we'll be investing, but again, the preliminary talks with having our own phone system with the city and everything was going, in the long run, was going to save huge numbers of dollars.
Right. So, just for the public and everybody else here, right now, all departments of the city are paying AT&T for their phone services. So every month, we get a phone bill, and depending on the department, it can range from a couple $100 to over $1,000, $1,200 a month. If we had a hosted phone solution, we would actually own our own servers and hardware here in-house and use voice over IP. So we would really only be paying AT&T or some other third-party provider for that phone number, which is a very low-cost item. And all of our phone charges, such as long distance or to place a call, would be essentially free because we're our own phone provider. So obviously there's the upfront cost, and we don't know exactly what that will be, but we're going through the process right now to schedule a demo, learn more about it. The city of Walker and I believe Granville have just gone through this process, and they've shown it can save a lot of money. Rough estimates show over a 10-year period, $200,000+ savings for the city, if not more. That's probably a conservative estimate. We want to make sure that all our facts and assumptions and figures are correct before we tell you before we do it, and this is how much we're going to save. But it does seem like something with a return on investment in less than 2 years, which is a no-brainer.
Well, and doesn't the voice over IP provide a lot more flexibility so that if you have to set up a mailbox for something in particular, if there's something going on and you need to set up a special mailbox, you can do that
Yes.
really easy. And
It's amazing the
without any
features
additional
that there are. I
cost.
mean, you can check your voicemail from your internet
Right.
if you're on the road, and
Right.
there's all these
there's a lot
chat
more
features
flexibility.
between people in the city, and it's really cool. So we're just going down that road right now. If it shows we're not going to save money, expect that we use this money somewhere else or put it in a reserve fund, but I at least want to have the dollars available if it shows that it's a viable project.
And I just wanted the public to know that we're looking at that as a cost saving as compared to, oh, this is a neat thing that, a Cadillac of phone systems that we're just not going out and just because we want to have the best and everything. We're doing it because of the potential savings over the 10 years.
Correct. Yes.
Could you also just remind, for the sake of anybody watching the meeting, I know sometimes people can look at this budget and go, oh my gosh, you're making this huge profit. Why are you making this huge profit? Could you also remind people what we are required to have in terms of what we have to have in case something happens to the grid and what those requirements are? Because I think it's important for people to be reminded of that.
Right. I'll answer your question second. First, the APPA and even the people that will design our rate structure recommend that you fully fund depreciation through cash. So, we're funding more than depreciation, but you should be making consistent capital upgrades in some way or another to your system. So in terms of the 990, that's what we're doing. The charter recommends, or the charter requires that we have 10% of our system value in cash and reserves, which is why we need the money in the bank that we have. And the APPA also recommends that we have 90 to 180 days of operating expenses and maintenance on hand. So that's the reason why we, have the cash that we have. It's not because we just want to sit on a bunch of money just for the heck of it. It's because the charter requires it, and it's just prudent. So,
Thank you. And
yeah,
I just think it's important to mention that from time to time because people who may watch this and look at some of these budget numbers think, wow.
I'm actually going to be giving probably a 10-minute presentation Monday at the
Okay.
council meeting,
Good.
going over the basics of FERC accounting, highlights of our budget, and different financial and target operating ratios that we try to achieve. And that will be one of the items I talk about of, why we need the cash we need and why we need the net income we need and why we put money into capital projects. So I will go over this last $75,000. The city has a equipment or in vehicle replacement fund where they take money out of the general fund and transfer it in to an equipment fund where they then have a spreadsheet of here's the equipment and tools that we have, here's how long we think that equipment and tools can last, and this is how much it'll cost to replace that. So what Ryan, Mark, and I did this past week, actually, we went over all of the equipment, the tools, the trucks, the trailers that we have, how many miles or hours are on each piece of equipment, how old they are, what's the condition, how long do we think they're going to last. And we plotted these out through 2026. And we said, okay, this is our plan for the next 10 years. If we're going to use $75,000 this year to actually put in a separate bank account to use to fund our equipment. So if we need to buy a $300,000 bucket truck, it's not like we have to use a third of our capital budget, 3 years from now to buy a new bucket truck. We're kind of doing it slowly over time and being smart about our money instead of getting in a pickle. So that's on cue.
Speaking of pickles.
Thank you, Megan.
I'm really set up to print very well.
That's okay.
Okay. I did the best I could.
Did you, okay, this is perfect. Sorry about that, everybody. I apologize.
It worked out.
I've already seen this, huh?
Make sure you go.
Is it a packet?
Yeah,
So
it was
there's,
3.
it's a long.
It's a long spreadsheet, and I will update it and clean it up and make sure it's,
I have to look at it like this.
thanks, Megan.
Welcome.
I'm glad you found it. I was like, ooh, I hope it's sticking in my head. Okay, so there's 3 pages, but it's just really one long table. The first page should show the equipment in the leftmost column. The second page is the page that's also full, and the third page is just a few columns. So you can see we've listed out our equipment from truck number 28 through truck number 128. It shows the year, the description, the miles, the condition. I put in here our fiscal year 2017 improvements. In our distribution budget and the operating budget, you'll see that our truck expenses are higher than past years because we do plan to make some fairly significant improvements to trucks that we haven't in past years. And under the notes on the second page, you'll see what the problem is and what we're going to be fixing this next fiscal year that Ryan and his staff believe will extend the useful life of the truck, and it's just something that needs to be done. And then from fiscal year 2017 through 2026, you'll see dollar amounts plotted out in various years. And this is, at this point in time, our best estimate of how long a piece of equipment can last and what we feel the cost is likely to be in that year. The last couple lines show a contribution from capital budget to equipment replacement fund and a running balance in the equipment replacement account. So you'll see under fiscal year 2017, we have $75,000. We do plan to purchase a dump truck this year. It'll significantly cut down on our tree trimming. It can be used by the entire city if that's what needs to be used, and Ryan and Mark feel that we'll be able to use it for other things. Correct, Ryan?
That's correct.
So our net position in the vehicle and equipment fund at the end of the year, we estimate to be $55,000. We're hoping we can get a truck for less than 20, but I just wanted to go on the very high side, worst case scenario. So as we run out the next 10 fiscal years, you'll see contributions of various amounts that'll allow us to fund the account and also always have a positive balance. This will need to be tweaked, and who knows when a truck will break or if we think a truck can last longer, but at least we have something on paper to give us a plan of how we can replace our equipment and trucks.
So, quick question for you. I noticed truck number 128 on the bottom there.
Yes.
Gets a lot of use and it's sort of in poor condition, but we're not thinking we can replace it until 2020.
Correct.
You think it's going to last that long?
Well, it is right now, when we had purchased the truck, we had thought we would be using it 5 or 6 times a week to haul manure. It's down to like 1 time a week.
Okay.
So it's driving right now 20, 24 miles
Okay.
a week.
Okay.
We're hoping and expecting that, yeah, we might have to put some money into it, but before we want to have to buy a replacement or a new one,
Okay.
let's try
They're
to at
likely-
least get it
okay.
out 3 or 4. And when it says fiscal year 2020, that's July of 2019
Right.
through June of 2030. So that's 37, 38 months from now. So I had it out there in 2022 or something, but that was too hopeful.
You're pushing it a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
But I did want to bring to you this plan. I promised we'd develop a plan, so this is a working document that we'll update and tweak and put more research into as time comes closer. And
So when you've got the big number in some of these, like,
those are big bucket trucks.
and so we're looking at, they're gonna last till, or we're making them last till the year 2021?
Correct.
Okay. And my question was to Ryan, because Ryan had mentioned one time that some of these things, these bucket trucks need to be ordered a year, 2 years in advance.
Right.
So if we're looking at, again, obviously you guys will be taking care of it, but in 2021, if that's the year we're gonna replace it, we'll probably actually be placing the order in 2019?
If the lead time to get one is still that long, that's when we would have to think about it seriously, yes.
I just wanted everybody, all the members to know that, because we had that conversation, that they're typically not something that you can just go down and order and
Go to the
get it
car
off,
lot
get it off
Yeah.
the shelf. It's a couple of years, Ryan's indicating that it's a couple of years, sometimes it's a couple of years in advance that, to order one of these trucks. Outfitted the way you want it outfitted for the city, or for Lowell Light and Power.
Right.
So do we have to pay for it when we order it, or is it?
That's something I'm
Would
not
that
sure.
affect the timing of the?
Probably a deposit or something like that.
Yeah, imagine.
Okay,
Yeah, those are things that I'll have to tweak a little bit more closely.
yeah.
I'd hope we wouldn't have to put more than 10-15% down
Mhm.
before, a year and a half early.
Yeah, because it's kind of a long
I
time.
mean, that's a lot of cash to put down, waiting 18 months.
Mhm.
But, yeah, we can investigate that. This was just meant to be a high-level plan of something we're looking at, and we finally, we did take an assessment of our equipment and how long we think it can last, so.
Well, I think this is an important planning document, so I appreciate you taking time to put it together.
Ryan and Mark did most of it, so credit to them. Okay, so I've covered the operating budget, covered the capital budget. That's all I have unless there's any questions.
I would make a motion to approve the final budget to send over to the city.
Can I just ask a point of order? Do we need two separate motions, one for the operating budget and one for capital, or can we do them all in one?
I think it's all the same thing, isn't it?
Well, they are
Well, there
two
was some
separate.
question last year, that's why I want
budgets.
to make sure that we
Right.
get
We
it
could split 'em up
clarified.
just for safety.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
so are we doing the operating budget, Perry? Can I-
Operating budget first.
I'll second
support
that.
that.
I just want to make sure. Okay. I'll second it.
Jason.
All right, we have a motion and support to approve the 2017 final operating budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd make a motion to approve the 2017 capital budget.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support to approve the 2017 capital budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the third action item is a wind purchase power agreement. And I am going to give a little bit more background. We talked about this last month, Greg and Tamala, but the MPPA has been working with a renowned energy developer to sign a 20-year, 150 megawatt purchase power agreement. And they've been working on it for the last number of months. And all members of the MPPA have an option to purchase energy through the MPPA for this project. The project is in the Thumb area. It wouldn't begin till roughly 2018. The price is very competitive, below $50 a megawatt hour, which is very competitive for renewable energy. And it will be billed to us through the Energy Services Project. Lowell and Power is recommended to purchase 2.16 megawatts of wind. The MPPA has done load studies and forecasts and projections, and this does fit in to their projection. So all members have the option to purchase power, and it appears that 14 of the MPPA members will be purchasing power through this agreement. There are limited number of wind projects that the MPPA expect to be successful because the thumb area blows more than the middle of the state. You have people who don't like wind projects because of the aesthetics, things like that. So there are a limited number of wind projects. This may be our only great chance to be part of a wind project. So this is a recommendation of the MPPA. It fits Lowell Light and Power's power needs. It's at a competitive price. And right now, the MPPA is asking people who are interested in purchasing wind to go back to their respective cities and get approval. And if all cities are to get approval by August 1st, the power agreement will go into effect. If not, they'll have to divvy up who's buying the 150 megawatts. Right now, it looks like if Lowell Light and Power decided, oh, we don't want the wind, some other city would probably pick up our tap. So it'll probably go into effect no matter what, but the MPPA did have a recommendation to each city of how much wind would be the right amount for Lowell Light and Power. So after we purchase the wind, they estimate that 30% of our power will be from renewable sources, which is really cool and awesome. We'll actually be the leader in the state of Michigan for all members of the MPPA. So I think that's awesome. And this is a cheaper source of power than the Granger landfill gas that we purchased, and it's very competitive to what the biodigester will be over the 20 years, right near the same amount of dollars per kilowatt hour, or the cents per kilowatt hour. So it's my recommendation, MPPA's recommendation, that we do enter into a 20-year purchase power agreement for 2.16 megawatts. But I'd entertain any questions or concerns.
I've got I guess just a few to clarify. I guess number one, the developer of this project, are they still incognito, or do we know who they are?
We do know who they are. The agreement with them, they have this agreement, and it's very competitive up there right now.
Mm-hmm.
The MPPA asked not for it to go public if we could keep it that way.
Okay.
But we do know who the developer is, and they develop wind projects all over the country.
Okay.
I think, in conversation, I think they just want to, until the MPPA, the group, all have committed, they want to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense.
Low profile.
Yep. Just wanted to make sure, but as long as you do know who it is.
Yep, we do know who it is. Yes.
And so it's
Yep.
somebody that you can kind of.
Yeah, they're very reputable, have a
Informally
long
vet them.
history,
Yeah,
and
so you at least
that
know
was
who
one of
they
the
are.
big factors that
Okay.
they'll be able to develop the project on a timely basis, get the land rights, make the interconnection to the transmission system, things like that, that it actually has a chance of success.
Okay.
It's not just some random vendor coming out of nowhere and, hey, we're
Yeah.
gonna develop this wind project at this price. It is a renowned vendor.
Okay. And then the 2.16 megawatts, like, how do they determine that that's right for us, or
Yep,
I guess what goes into that? Because it just seems like
they look
it
at,
came from like nowhere, but I mean, I know there's something behind it, I just want to understand it.
no, well,
If you don't mind, I can jump in quick.
okay,
First question, there are actually 2 or 3 companies that are competing for this wind. So that's why there's a non-compete clause. And, I mean, that's just explains why they absolutely not divulge who it is while the final negotiations are going on.
Okay.
Second thing is, with respect to the amount for Lowell and Power, we were part of a project called the Renewable Energy Project. And so we paid over the last 5 years to be a part of that project. And so we get first option on the amount of wind that's available based on our proportionate share of megawatt hours used annually in comparison to the total in the group from MPPA. So that's how the percentage was determined.
So it's, you added up everybody's average consumption, so to speak, and then, so whatever we are from MP, whatever percentage of, kilowatts or megawatts, whatever we use from MPPA's group, that's the percentage that we were allocated to this 150 megawatt project.
That was our fair share, so to speak,
Okay.
based on our participation in the project that looked for renewable energy projects.
Okay. That's a decent amount though, right? 'Cause that's,
2.16 megawatts is what we're entitled to, but the capacity factor they're estimating is 40%.
mhm.
So if you took 2.16 megawatt hours times 24 hours a day times by 365 days, we're entitled to that, but the wind would need to be blowing all of that time.
Yeah.
In reality, it's only going to be blowing 40% of the time. So they estimate,
Just under a megawatt?
yeah, like 0.8
Yeah.
or 0.9
Like-
that we'll actually be getting on the average hour, if you had to average it out.
Okay. So in other words, it's pretty much equal to the bout adjuster.
Right,
More or less.
biodigesters 0.8 almost all of the time.
Mhm.
Correct. And all of this could be used, because right now our entitlements through Bell River, Campbell, Kalkaska, they don't, if you add them all up and compare them to our peak, we still are deficient. We're still paying for capacity.
Okay. So then, if we had this, it would also then enable us to run the generators more in terms of selling power.
No, we can run the generators May through September whenever it's cost effective.
Right. But we're not, we'd have,
We would just be selling more into the market because we would already be covering more of our load in
Right.
town through contracts or purchase agreements.
okay, so I think that's what I meant to say then. But
Right.
yeah, so I understand what you're saying, so that's.
Yeah, we would still produce whenever we could.
Yeah.
It's just
When we
we're-
do, that we're gonna have more to give away because we're gonna have.
Not giveaway, so.
sell.
I mean, yeah.
We're not giving it
More to
away.
sell away, yeah.
Just
Because we have the
saying.
wind added to our, because we are what, like around 10 or megawatts or whatever, what's our average load? I forget exactly, I feel like we peak at 17 or something, or,
I think our average load's right around 9.
okay. So this is
I'd have to
roughly
double
like
check.
10% of our.
Correct.
Okay,
Could you-
cool.
Did you say 35% renewable energy? What was the percentage that you
30.
said this
30.
would?
They're estimating our load forecast in 2018 would be roughly 82 million megawatts, and they believe 30% of that will be coming from renewable sources, 30%.
Okay, overall?
Correct.
Okay. And where does it put us in terms of what the federal step standards are?
And that's, I'm going to get to that at the MPPA,
Okay.
but Chair, or Senator Knopf spoke at today's MMEA spring annual meeting, and the state of Michigan is setting a goal. This isn't enforceable to utilities, but through public pressure and who knows what will come out in the future years, they're setting a goal of 35% by 2025.
Okay.
And
So
that
put us in
that
good
can either
shape.
be renewable energy or EO. So if you save kilowatt hours through EO, that can count towards your 35%, because in effect, it's really doing the same thing. You're eliminating, waste energy.
How much do we currently do for EO?
The budget is 1% a year, I believe, of total
1% of
load.
our load, okay. Not bad.
And
So we
they
can
also
really-
talked about that today, which I'll get to later, but EO is going through, Jim Weeks had thought 2018, but Senator Knopf said possibly 2021. So everything's
Okay.
changing.
Yeah.
Well, and it could all change again come November.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I do think there's the renewable requirements are just gonna keep going up. That's
Okay.
just the way the world's going.
Right.
So,
So
yes.
So that-
Again, I'm sorry.
The peanut gallery.
Okay, but the one thing to remember is that the EO continues. I mean,
Mhm.
if you say 1% this year,
Mhm.
and then you say 1% next year, you've saved 2%.
Right.
And it compounds.
Oh, it's cumulative.
It compounds,
Okay.
So
yeah.
we've been doing this for 5 or 6 years, so we've got that volume of savings and energy efficiency over those 5 or 6 years to get that 5 or 6%.
Mhm.
Cool.
So
Did you have
my question
go ahead.
to Steve and to Greg, how does that work if we're applying, looking at 2.16, is 2.16 is what will, obviously the winds, I understand that, but would we technically, when it comes to the amount of energy that we have to have of, not of renewables, is the number 2.6 calculated in there, or the number 0.8 or whatever?
The number of
calculated?
kilowatts or megawatts that actually are delivered to us.
Okay,
So if the wind blows 50% of the time, we'll get more of that, get 50% of the
Right.
2.16 delivered to us. If it blows 30%
so
of
it's
the
what's
time, we'll get.
delivered, not what?
Correct,
we-
and that's only how much we'll pay for as well.
So my question is, where does the 2.6, where does that put us in percentage of, I mean, we've got the Granger, we got currently the biodigester here, we've got the AMP stuff down in Ohio, which we're
AMP.
actually selling that, right?
AMP is not renewable,
Is
though.
not renewable? Like, my question is, can we go for more, do we need to look, if all of a sudden, if you're going, there's only gonna be so much wind out there, do we need to look at purchasing more
Bigger share.
renewable than the 2.6?
2.16.
Or can you,
Well, right now, this is, MPPA said, yep, your portfolio can use the 2.16, but this is all right now that we're able to get through the 150 unless somebody were to say, we don't want it. Then we could have the potential.
okay,
But I think right now, we're sitting in a great spot.
Because right now, the only legal limit is 10%, right?
Correct.
And then the 35% is like the goal or the potential limit in the future that we'd be close to already.
Right.
So then, between the Granger and the biodigester and the wind, each one's roughly 10% of our load then, or of the, is that where that 30% of our renewable comes from?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah,
Okay.
I can get you exact numbers on that, but the biodigester, is 0.8. This
Yeah,
is
that's
gonna come to
close,
0.8,
yeah.
0.9, and then it's actually Granger and Nanner for landfill gas. And
Okay.
I think right now they're, 7 or 8% of our total load. So that should be right around there, yeah.
Okay.
okay. Well, if that's the max that we can purchase,
Correct, Greg? That's how I understand it. I mean,
Again, unless somebody else decides they don't want it.
but it doesn't appear, I haven't heard anything from anyone saying they don't want what they can get.
In fact, I think there's other people that would like some that can't get it.
I would make a motion to enter agreement with MPPA for the 2.16 megawatts of wind
I'll support.
power.
I had a few more questions though too, just as a continued discussion, I guess. The $50 per megawatt, is that a fixed limit or is that just a projected cost?
That is, they already have the 20-year cost determined. It's a slight increase. I don't know the exact percent, but it starts in the very, very low 40s.
Mhm.
For the first couple years, it's the same. And then there's a small incremental 1 or 2% increase every year for the 20 years.
So the average is about 50 for the 20 years,
Over the 20 years, the average will be less than 20.
or less than 50?
Less than 50, yes.
And that's a fixed thing, right? So that's not something that if all of a sudden that their equipment wasn't as efficient as they thought, it's not, we wouldn't start paying more?
Correct.
So this is the
We're
contract?
locked in
Okay.
at that price.
That's one of the differences between the two of the competitors. Is one is a level price over the 20 years, and one starts out smaller and goes higher at that escalator over the 20 years, but they both work out to be within $2 or $3 of each other for
Okay.
the 20 years. And both are under 50.
And then they mentioned down here in item 5, there's the availability guarantee of 85%. That means 85% of the time the thing's running at a minimum, or,
Is able to run.
okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
So it's
let's
not-
say it's down a year for maintenance, you know,
Mhm.
just the whole thing is just on the ground.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's able to produce power, but that doesn't mean the wind's gonna be blowing 85% of the time.
Right. Yeah, so that, I'm just saying, that means that the system is functional 85% of the time,
Correct.
and then the wind will blow at an average 40% power factor, or so to speak, or
Yeah, capacity factor. Yep.
capacity factor, okay.
Yep.
And then if they don't have the project ready by December 31st, 2019, is that something about a default payment? I guess what does that mean?
They owe MPPA, I don't know the exact number, I think $400,000 or $500,000 that will be split proportionally amongst the members for not fulfilling their end of the contract.
Okay. And that means if they don't operate at all, or if that means that they just are late in getting started, or what is that date?
It has to be up and running by December 31st, 2019.
Okay.
Done.
At full capacity, or?
Well, I mean, at full, it has to be able to be operational by 2019.
So one windmill, right?
No, the whole
No.
system.
All of them, okay.
Yeah, 150 megawatts has to be available to run
Okay,
by December 31st, 2019.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, they can't just have 2 of the megawatts ready.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Is that what they are? They're roughly 1 megawatt windmills?
I am not sure the size of the windmills.
Okay.
The standard size now is about 1.5 or 1.6.
Okay,
And if they don't meet it by December 31st, then they lose the federal production tax credits.
okay.
So there's a huge incentive other than just the fact that they've sold the power to somebody.
Right.
They lose everything if they don't, in terms of what makes the project feasible if they don't do it by that time.
Is that a similar credit than what the Outage district used for the?
Very similar.
Okay.
yeah.
Great, that was all my questions. Yep.
A motion and support. If
Cool,
there's no
thank you.
further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, fourth item is a transformer purchase of actually 2 different transformers. As everyone here knows, we had a fire last month that took out 1,500 kVA step-down transformer that resulted in a power outage to a large portion of the east side of town. And through some...
Thank you that it was quick.
What?
Thank you that it was quick.
It was the day after our meeting.
Right, after, yeah.
After the meeting where we discussed all the outages. and-
I know, and it's just a beautiful sunny day, too.
It was.
Yep. And you were talking about no major events.
Right.
Next day.
I jinxed it. I should have knocked on the wood. It wouldn't have happened. Well, through some configuration and taking in a transformer with the DPW, replacing it with the burned up, putting it where the burned up one was, taking a transformer from our warehouse, putting it by the DPW. We're currently out of this type of 1,500 kVA transformer, and to order one takes 4 to 6 weeks. It is an expensive item, but it's Ryan's feeling, my feeling, and I know Perry and Greg, we talked that we should have one of these transformers as a spare. We did pull the bill of sale, and the transformer was purchased late summer of 2013 and had a 36-month warranty. So, we're going through the warranty process right now, and our hope and expectation is to receive a brand-new transformer. If that doesn't pan out for whatever reason, we do have this under our property and liability insurance, and there's a $500 deductible. So worst case scenario is, when it's all said and done, we'll pay $500 to have a backup transformer for this location, as well as a few other locations around town. So I talked with Greg and Perry, and I did get Greg's blessing to go ahead and order that transformer. But we did have to order it at the price quoted to us. We'll end up getting reimbursed, and it'll be a net of either $0 or $500, but the quote that I put in your packet does show a price, and that's the reason. Through those conversations, we also talked about the fact that we do not have a backup transformer for our Atwood transformer. That transformer has a very special configuration.